All right, welcome to a very special kind of new edition of Sunday Night Fights, where I'm just going to talk one-on-one with a comedian about five films that influenced them. This week, I am talking with Daryl Bean, a really funny
Going?
comic from Detroit. Daryl, you're a film guy.
I am. I am a big film guy, actually.
Do you remember the first movie you saw in a theater, or in your case, a
I,
drive-in?
I was thinking about that. Yeah, in my case, it was a drive-in because I grew up, in a really small town, kind of rural, and we didn't go into the big city to go to the movie theater all that much. So we'd end up going to movies at this drive-in theater. And I was trying to remember if the first movie I saw, the first one I definitely remember is The Muppets Take Manhattan. Seeing that at the drive-in. But I think before that, and I just don't remember it as well. I think we went to go see Snoopy Come Home,
Okay.
the really depressing, awful Snoopy movie. I think we saw that at the drive-in prior to that. And I would have been really little. I'd have been like 6 or something like that.
Yeah, I remember my mom said the first movie she took me to was Hello Dolly, and I guess
Ah.
I tried running up to the screen to touch it, and I don't remember it, and I am kind of sickened that the first movie I ever saw was a Barbra Streisand movie, because as a Jew, there's
Yeah.
nothing more Jewish than than seeing one of her films.
That's a good point.
It's horrible. Um, did you have a video store in your town?
Yeah, actually, one. I mean, there's like one video store in town, and it was kind of small, and selection wasn't real fantastic, as you can probably imagine. It would be like the town I grew up in would be kind of the equivalent of growing up in like Fowlerville,
Okay.
really, in terms of size and sort of I don't know how to say this without sounding like a dick, but just the kind of people there too.
So you grew up from what I remember. You said you grew up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you did you have close to Philly or Pittsburgh?
Closer to Pittsburgh. I grew up in if Pittsburgh's in the southwest side of the state, and I was in the northwest side of the state. I was in Erie.
Okay. What? That's like 2 hours away, right?
Yeah. Oh, actually, from here,
Oh, from Pittsburgh.
from Pittsburgh, yeah, about 2 hours from
Okay.
Pittsburgh north. Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Pittsburgh for a short period of time, and I was really excited to live there, so I go to the Monroeville Mall.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
I
That
wanted
was
yeah, I wanted to see where Dawn of the Dead was filmed. I was really upset they updated the mall since then.
How could you do this? This is a cultural touchstone. How could you?
It was a historical place. It should have been the Historical Society of Pittsburgh should have said nothing changes. All the
Yeah.
stores have to remain the same. I mean, I would love it if there was like a Ponderosa or Bonanza restaurant that still existed. But
Bonanza. God. Now, did you go I'm not really as familiar with the with Pittsburgh area in terms of film history. Are there spots from sure, Night of the Living Dead that are still there? Like that cemetery is probably still there.
I honestly didn't go look.
Oh,
Like in the places I've lived, the only places I've actually sought out to see were when I lived in Seattle. I went to where Twin Peaks was filmed.
oh, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah, I went looking for the Black Lodge, but
yeah.
I couldn't find it. And when I lived in Pittsburgh, I went to the Monroeville Mall. And when I was out in LA visiting friends, I had to go to the place in Swingers where Marty and Elaine were, the Dresden, where Marty and Elaine were singing the covers.
Right. Yeah.
And I've had the pleasure of seeing them a couple times. And Dresden is probably my favorite place in LA, and I'm so glad Swingers told me that place existed.
It's pretty amazing. That'd be an amazing place to see for sure.
Yeah, and the one thing I like best about LA is they are really good at keeping the old shit around, unlike Detroit, where let's get rid of it, let's get rid of it, let's put a CVS, let's put a Subway in there.
Yeah. Yeah, we need another Applebee's. Let's take this out, and
Yeah, you need a place where you have all the pictures that are prefabricated except for the one of the coach.
right. Yeah, yeah, that's important. You should get rid of these cultural touchstones otherwise, so that we can have another Applebee's. That's what we really
Yeah.
need. Yeah, it's nuts. Like in Detroit, I'd gone to United Sound Studios one time. I took a class there, sort of like a class field trip, and just standing in a building, and they were like, yeah, Charlie Parker recorded in that room, and I was like, I'm sorry, who, what? Like to think that I'm in the same building that Charlie Parker was in, and Miles Davis, and all these incredible musicians. It was just like you get this just chill of that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, have you ever been to the Majestic downtown?
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, supposedly that's where Houdini got the punch that killed him.
Really, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but I think that's where it happened, or the story goes.
Huh.
It's also where I puked unmerciful. I puked really bad one night because I drank way too much. So
That's probably a much more common story down in the Majestic.
yeah, but it's historical, and if I ever perform a show there, I will bring that point up. So
As one should.
yeah, I think it should be on Tours of Detroit, since we're now such a gentrified, and as Mike Eshak says, it's an adorable city now.
Yeah.
Um,
Very cute.
So let's talk film. Let's talk 5 films that influenced you and why. What will be the first one on your list?
So the first one on my list actually is one that I brought up on the fight, the Sunday night fights, as a heist film that isn't really a heist film, and it's Raising Arizona.
Okay.
And I thought of that one for a lot of the same reasons I was talking about in Sunday Night Fights, that Raising Arizona is the first movie I saw that really made me notice what a director brought to the table as for a movie. Like I really wasn't aware of that until I saw Raising Arizona, because I could see that it was really different. And everything I read about it and heard about it was all like, oh, the Coen brothers, the Coen brothers, the Coen brothers. And it was the first time in a movie where people talk less about the people in the movie than they did about the people who made the movie.
Did you first see it in the theater or on video?
On video, on HBO, actually. I remember seeing it on HBO because it was on all the time. So I've seen it, probably 100 times, if not more. And yeah, it was the first time, like, I've never seen like the tracking shots where they're running through the house. And when when Nicolas Cage is being chased. It was just so weird,
I think it's a beautiful film, and if I was doing my list, it would probably be in the top 10. Not sure top 5, but I think the movie is nearly perfect. It uses Nick Cage's overacting as a benefit.
Yep.
Holly Hunter is great. I mean, she's great in everything she's in.
Right. Yeah.
But the colors, the pacing, it's just a masterful film. And I will say that was the first Coen Brothers movie I saw, and then I went and got Blood Simple at the video store, and I'm like, how is this from the same filmmakers? It's like they're masters of every genre that they've done.
Yeah, 100%. Like the look of the films is just so like perfect for each story, even though they're not the same. Like some directors are really good at a certain like milieu. Like John Ford and the big painted skies and all that sort of stuff. But every film that the Coen brothers have done, regardless of the storyline or where it's set, it's just perfect. Like they just nail the look of every film. It's amazing.
Have you watched it recently?
I have actually, yeah.
Because I had this problem with The Big Lebowski. I saw it about a year ago at the Redford Theater, which is just a beautiful revival theater here in Detroit. And The Big Lebowski didn't hold up for me.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's because they actually stopped the film in the middle to do an intermission, which I think is horrible to do to any film, especially if the director didn't intend it to have one.
Right. Yeah.
But it just kind of bothered me, and maybe it's because I've seen it so many times.
I have that thing with The Big Lebowski too, right? I love it, but then when I watch it, like I don't really pay attention because I've seen it so much, and I don't know that I'm as engaged as I was when I first watched it.
And I feel different about Raising Arizona because I think it's a shorter movie than The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
But also, there's so many layers to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at it, it is a tragic story about this woman who really, really wants kids and her husband who will do anything to get it for her. It's a story that I can't imagine how they pitched it because, kidnapping is the worst thing in the world, one of the worst things in the world. And
Right.
they turn it into a heartfelt story in the epilogue at the end where he talks about the kid growing up and
Oh, right. Yeah.
it's just a tearjerker. And I don't know, it made me a fan of the Coen brothers. Yeah, I can see why that is on your list, but why else did it influence you?
I mean, that was really the big thing because it opened up that sort of doorway of like, okay, well, that's what a Coen Brothers movie looks like, and I started noticing like, John Hughes was a huge filmmaker during that time. Like, why do I like John Hughes movies better than I like other movies? Or why do I like?
I have to ask that. Why do you like John Hughes movies better than other? Why do you like John Hughes movies?
I mean, at the time, I liked the energy. I liked the music that they used, like the music choices that he had, because it felt really cool and really hip. Like because they're using all these like IRS bands and all that sort of stuff, and it like I really kind of clued into that, I guess. Whereas now, I mean, I don't really. I mean, the only one that really holds up for me now is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles of his movies.
Breakfast Club holds up too.
Yeah, that's true. Breakfast Club is good. That's a good one as well. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is still my standout favorite Hughes movie. But then Tim Burton was coming out around the same time too, and he had this, especially during that time period, like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and movies like Beetlejuice. And he had this real style, and I feel like the Coen brothers kind of prepared me to be aware of that and to kind of take that in a little bit more.
It's weird that the Coen brothers on the list you mentioned of Tim Burton and John Hughes can't be included since he has passed away. But
Sure,
Tim Burton, I think, in a way, has failed as a filmmaker. His movies have become crap. Like
I've been really disappointed.
I mean, ever since his version of Planet of the Apes, he has not made a good movie.
It's true. I mean, I kind of like I didn't see that, so I didn't see if it was any good or not. Like I kind of stopped at Big Fish. Like Big Fish was the last Tim Burton movie I saw that I really liked a lot. And then I think it was a little bit after that was when Charlie and the Chocolate Factory came out, and I was like, ugh. And I've struggled since then with Tim Burton.
Yeah, I've struggled since the first Batman film.
Yeah, did you like the first Batman film?
I fucking hated it. I thought it looked beautiful.
Sure.
But the point where the Joker comes into the museum to the music of Prince and vandalizing everything, I'm like, the Joker wouldn't do that. He would kill everybody. Then he would listen to Prince and vandalize everything.
Yeah, that was a pretty lame scene. That.
No, but all right. So what will be the second movie on your list?
So the second movie on my list was Blue Velvet by David Lynch, which I saw when I was 13, actually. Like the first time I saw it, I think it was 13. I was either 13 or 14, because I think it came out in 86 in theaters. And then I got it on video. Like I rented it at the little tiny video store that I mentioned earlier, and watched it at my grandparents' house.
Oh, God.
Actually, like, and they didn't. It's so weird that like I felt from the time that I was about like till about 12 or 13, like I felt kind of coddled isn't the right word, but protected. Like I wasn't allowed to watch stuff like that or do things like that. And then all of a sudden, like everybody just stopped paying attention to what I was doing and what I was watching, and I kind of went apeshit. Like I just was like, let's try that. Let's see what this is all about, And I had seen a number of times in Rolling Stone magazine. I had a subscription to Rolling Stone, and they talked at length about David Lynch and about Blue Velvet and what an important movie it was, and how weird it was, and how crazy it was. And I was like, all right, I want to check this out. I want to get out there. I want to see what's going on. So yeah, I watched Blue Velvet, 13, 14 years old, totally over my head, of course. But it was important to me because he was the first sort of um, art film director that I kind of got into. He was the first person to use surrealism that I really like started watching and really kind of resonated with how he used surrealism. Even if I didn't understand it really, it was just like, wow, this takes me to a whole other world, and it's different than this tiny ass little town where everybody listens to AC/DC and I don't fit in and I don't understand what's going on. Like, this is weird, but it's different and I like it, you know?
Your story is kind of like a metaphor of the movie itself,
Yeah, it really is.
where Kyle MacLachlan's character had this little idyllic existence, and the discovery of that ear just led him on a very scary trip through his little Lumberton.
Yes, Lumberton. Yep.
Yeah. I read about Blue Velvet and Rolling Stone as well, and Film Threat magazine, and I had to see it.
Yeah.
Rented it on video, and I was blown away. Like, I saw Dune, which made me hate David Lynch.
Understandable. Yeah.
And then I saw Blue Velvet. All of a sudden I became a fan, and like every movie he's made since Blue Velvet has, yeah, I'm a fan of all of them. Even The Straight Story, which I thought was the most un-Lynchian David Lynch film ever.
Yeah, and it's still such a weird story at its heart too. You know, like that in Elephant Man, because I think I rented the Elephant Man after I saw Blue Velvet because I was so taken by the whole thing, and I'm like, what else has he done? You know?
Yeah, Elephant Man is fantastic, and by the way, it's coming out from Criterion later this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to buy that.
I hope hopefully it'll be up by the time the sale happens in November.
That'd be nice.
But no, I think with Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive, Wild at Heart, what was the one?
Lost
Highway.
Yeah.
Fire Walk with Me, and even Inland Empire, and the Twin Peaks series, of course. All of those movies, I believe in my mind, are this David Lynch shared universe.
Right, like the Marvel, like basically like the Marvel universe, but the David Lynch universe of just weirdness. Yeah.
And especially Lost Highway, Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, and Twin Peaks. I think they all encompass the same space.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw The Return.
I did, yeah.
In the scene where it's basically from the Giants' perspective, his world. It's the same place as Silencio from Mulholland Drive.
You're right. Yeah, it's the same kind of setup, basically. Yeah, that was my favorite moment. I think the first time I watched Mulholland Drive, and the thing I love about Lynch is the way he can completely fool you into thinking you're watching one thing. That was Mulholland Drive for me, where like I thought, like, this is a terrible movie. What is going on?
But it's weird. The movie was filmed at two separate times. Like the first half before Silencio was the pilot for a TV series.
Right. Yeah.
And then it didn't get picked up. He wanted to make a movie out of it, so he got funding to do the second half. So it's weird that he kind of backtracked into what Mulholland Drive became. I would love to be in a parallel universe where that show was on the air for like 10 years.
That'd be great.
But Blue Velvet, did it make you want to drink Pabst Blue Ribbon instead of Heineken?
It did not. I wanted to avoid whatever it was those people were drinking because it's like, they're terrifying. Oh my God.
Oh, the scene with where I can't remember the actor's name, who used to be Al on Quantum Leap.
Oh, Dean Stockwell.
Stockwell. When he is lip syncing to In Dreams. That is such a frightening sequence.
Oh my God. You're just like, where are you right now? Oh my God.
And one thing that I think he did really well is he didn't make any of the villains attractive. In fact, they were just disgusting looking.
Right. Yeah, nobody in that was like, oh, that guy like seems cool, you know, and then later you find out he's bad. It's like, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with any of these people ever.
And Isabella Rossellini's character was so, again, tragic. Her kid was
Mhm.
kidnapped. Her husband missing, dead. I don't remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, no, I
oh,
missed.
I think he was dead.
Yeah.
No, but being forced to be basically a sex slave to Frank,
Yeah.
and I mean, just some of the little things that they did, like him, breathing the gas in.
Right. Was that? I'm trying to remember if that was a Lynch thing or if that was from Dennis Hopper. Like if that was his thing that he added to the character. I don't remember.
It might have been, but it seems if Lynch let him do it, it's a Lynch thing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And Laura Dern was fantastic as well.
And she was 19 when
Yep,
they made
really?
that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, her mom was also kind of was the villainous in Wild at Heart.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's got that like little pool of actors that he tends to use in like everything.
That's great. I mean, it's great. Have you ever seen Blue Velvet in a theater?
I've not. I would love to though.
When I lived in Kansas City, we had an Alamo Draft House,
Mhm.
and I belonged to a movie group, and we would go to movies. And I saw it was playing. I recommended that we do it, and two of us went, and the guy I went with never saw the movie before.
Uh-huh.
I can't imagine he was like 55 years old at the time. How you were an adult when the movie came out. How the fuck did you miss it?
Right? I mean, it's as big of a cultural thing as it is. Like, how do you not see that movie? Right?
Especially if you lived in a big town where there were art theaters.
Yeah.
And he was blown away by it because I think a lot of movies now are predictable.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to a Tom Cruise movie, he's gonna live. There's no danger.
Right.
With the David Lynch film, anything can happen.
That's definitely true. And I think that the Twin Peaks: The Return is a good example of that, where it's just like you came into it expecting like it was going to be like Twin Peaks prior to that, and it was not at all like Twin Peaks, and just took all these different side turns and all that sort of stuff. Have you seen? There's a video on YouTube. It's really interesting, where this guy proposes a theory about what he thinks the meaning of Twin Peaks is.
What is it?
It's pretty wild. He basically is trying to. His thought is that the universe of Twin Peaks is a self-aware television show. Basically, like the characters in Twin Peaks are in this self-aware version of what a television show is, and they're demonstrating like what David Lynch doesn't like about television, because he was upset about the way that people would die in TV shows, and it was like it just was over, and it didn't have any long lasting effect. You would solve the murder and then it was over, and you'd never hear about these people ever again. And he's like, and he wanted to really explore like what happens when you kill a character, and it just has these ripple effects all the way through the story, and kind of make a comment, like a meta comment and commentary on the state of television. And The Return is Lynch saying you can't go back home again, basically.
I can buy that for The Return.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I believe that Twin Peaks is a self-aware universe. Because
if you got 5 hours to kill, you can watch the video, because it's 4.5 hours long.
Yeah, I'm not going to watch 4.5 hours. I'd much rather watch something more interesting. But to me, Twin Peaks was the show beside The Prisoner that showed that you could do much more with television than what people were doing at that time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the first TV shows that I can remember that had like a filmic quality to it. It wasn't video, it was film. And it had the kind of production quality that you would expect from a movie rather than a television show.
And I think that was the first season of Twin Peaks was fantastic. The second season, the show lost its way.
Yeah.
And even the actors would say because Lynch wasn't involved. And it became a soap opera. It became everything that it wasn't supposed to be.
Yep. Yeah.
But again, it was still better than 90% of everything on television.
Definitely true. Yeah. It was really interesting. And they forced him, because I guess the intent was to never reveal who killed Laura Palmer. Like that, they were never going to resolve that because they didn't think that was the important part. of the show. It was more about what was the effect of her dying, how did it impact this whole group of weirdos that lived in Twin Peaks, and when ABC forced their hand to reveal the killer because people were like, who killed her? Who, like that's where David Lynch was like, it's dead, it's over, the whole show's done.
But obviously it wasn't, because when he went and did Fire Walk with Me, which was a movie I did not appreciate when it came out.
Right. Yeah.
When I watched it years later, when I watched it to prepare for The Return, I thought it was brilliant because there was something I never realized. It was the story of this girl who was being sexually abused by her father.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these different layers that was Bob real?
Mm-hmm.
Or was Bob just this creation that manifested in her head?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in the universe of Twin Peaks, Bob is real. He's the son of, I can't remember the character.
Judy?
Judy, yes.
Right? Yeah, Judy, and was released in the atomic explosion on Bikini Atoll.
But it's just, I mean, the Laura Palmer story is so friggin' tragic.
Yeah, yeah.
Fun fact, have you ever seen the movie Thrashin' with Josh Brolin?
I have not.
It stars, in it is Sherilyn Fenn.
Okay, yeah.
And the woman who played the hooker that was killed by Bob the year previously in Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah. Teresa Banks.
Yeah.
But back to Blue Velvet. The use of music in that film was just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I think Lynch does very well. Richard Linklater does very well. And I think the great directors just have the way the music just kind of is part of the story.
Right. Yeah. Scorsese is like that too, like where the music's really integral to the story and they make interesting choices and stuff. So yeah.
But yeah, fantastic film. What would be third on your list?
So the third one is The Passion of Joan of Arc by Carl Dreyer, because it opened up basically the whole world of silent film to me, because prior to that, if you asked me about silent film, I would think like, okay, Keystone Cops, Charlie Chaplin, comedy, and it would be funny, but it's like kind of trite and I mean, they're great films, but not things that struck me deeply on an emotional level, right? And I actually watched it by accident because I was watching 2001 on Turner Classic Movies on a Sunday night, and I fell asleep, as I'm wont to do during 2001. Sorry, Stanley. And I woke up in the middle of the ending of The Passion of Joan of Arc, where they're burning Joan at the stake. And it was just like, it's a very old film, obviously. You can see that it's, it's silent film. I didn't know when it was from, but it was so like the burning is so graphic in it. And like there's this riot in the village and this mom dies. And I remember this shot, like she like falls on the ground with her eyes open and you see this child next to her crying. And it's like, it was just so visceral to see this. I'm like, what the hell is this? And like I looked on in the guide or something and it's like Passion of Joan of Arc. Well, I'm definitely going to need to watch that all the way through at some point, because the way they put the music into it too. There's a piece of music that was written more recently called Voices of Light that is sort of the soundtrack. Like anytime they've shown Joan of Arc since then, they usually combine it with Voices of Light, although I think there's another score for it. They just don't, but they don't know what it is because it was kind of lost for a long time.
Okay.
And yeah, I just was like, these are incredible. And if I'd never seen that, I wouldn't have watched Battleship Potemkin. I wouldn't have watched, Metropolis, Vampire, his other films, because I know he's got a bunch of them, but that's another one. It's in the Criterion Collection.
Isn't the Passion Joan? Isn't the Passion Joan of Arc?
What's that?
The Passion Joan of Arc is also in the Criterion Collection, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, and it just blew my mind.
I have never seen it,
Oh, you guys see it. It's so good.
and I love silent movies. The first one I saw was Nosferatu because Channel
Mhm.
9 out of Windsor would play it on Halloween, and my dad was watching it, and that movie gave me nightmares.
It's understandable. I mean, like it's really scary. That's the thing. People like kind of don't take silent film seriously a lot of times, and it's like it's so creepy. I mean, you watch like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. As I mentioned before, Vampire is super creepy, even though it's like it's an old movie and it doesn't have the shock value that say like a newer horror movie would have. But it's just creepy, you know.
It's very creepy. I have seen Vampire. I own it, but a few years ago, I was friends with this girl who ran an underground cinema collective, and for Halloween, they had this massive showing of Vampire,
Uh-huh.
and it was the first time I got to see with a bunch of people, and everyone was just transfixed
It's
because
amazing. The scene where he's like coffin burying him. That's so weird, man.
yeah, God, I might watch that tonight. No, I mean, I'm a big fan of silent films. And I think, I mean, if you look at like even Morales, not Morale, the guy who did Trip to the Moon.
Oh yeah. Oh geez. Sure. French.
Yeah,
Mealies.
yeah, Miles.
Miles. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is the first science fiction special effects driven film.
Hmm.
How much work had to go into it because everything was practical.
Yeah.
And Fritz Lang's Metropolis, same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I had to. I actually used that in a class and showed it to some college students, and because we were talking about modernism, about the the art movement of modernism, and I was kind of showing them that, and they were kind of blown away when I reminded them like they couldn't just make a lot of people in a computer and put it on screen. That's real. Like those are all people. So there's hundreds of extras making this movie right now.
it's insane. I can't imagine what it was like to make that film in 1920 whatever.
Right? I mean, the practical effects are amazing in it. For the time period, it's an unbelievable movie for the time that it's. You don't expect to see that. You know.
Just like curiosity, what is your favorite cut of Metropolis?
I like the complete Metropolis that Kino put out.
Yeah, it's a
Uh,
great one.
it's super great. I mean, like it's rough that some of the scenes are kind of scratchy, and it'd be nice if they put the Criterion effort in and clean those up along with the rest of the film. But it was really cool. I really liked it a lot. I also just for schlock value, I really like the Giorgio Moroder colorized one too.
That was the first version I saw,
Same.
and I bought the Kino release of that as well
Oh yeah,
because I mean that was the first way I saw the film, and to me
yeah.
that's the best way. And I love the complete version of Metropolis,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad that they were able to find that a film that
Right.
was considered lost. Like before I die, I want them to find London After Midnight.
Oh yeah, and like I have this. I would love to see Napoleon with the three screens, and I just haven't had an opportunity. Like I think they did like a really limited showing of it in San Francisco, like a couple of years ago, because Francis Ford Coppola has bought it, and he refuses to put it out on DVD.
Why?
Uh, I don't know why. That's a great question. I'm not sure why.
We're talking about the man who's released 3 versions of Apocalypse Now.
And we're going on 2 of Godfather 3 of all things. So
Oh, they're doing a second version of Godfather 3?
yeah, he's recutting it as I forget what the title was. It was some super long title, The Death of Michael Corleone, Godfather Coda or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but he's recutting it
Huh.
and adding in some new stuff as well. So
I mean, look, I love the Godfather saga. I even love Godfather 3 because it
yeah.
makes sense within the whole storyline.
Mhm.
But have you ever seen the version that was on HBO a couple years ago where it was the re-edited chronological version?
Did it include 3 or was it just the first
One,
2?
first 2.
Yeah, I've seen that before. The Godfather Saga, I think they call it.
Yeah,
Or something like that. Yeah.
there was a version that was done for television because my dad had that on videotape,
Hmm.
and then he went back and redid it again for HBO.
I don't think I've seen the HBO one. I've seen the TV one, but I don't think I've seen the HBO one.
I've never seen the original one
Hmm.
because again, when my dad had, I was like total film snob. He did not intend it to be this way. They were 2 different movies. But Passion of Joan of Arc, I've wanted it. It's been on my list of
Yeah,
things to buy, but
worthwhile. Definitely worthwhile.
but every time I go to like when the Criterion sales, they have released other things that I wanted to buy.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, because I have movies like that I keep kicking down the road. And I'm like, oh, I should get that. And then I go to the sale and it's like, oh, but then there's this and then there's that. And
It's weird. I mean, it's great. Criterion was the reason I bought a DVD player to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
This when they released Brazil in that 2-disc set.
Yep.
I'm like, there was the cut I saw in the theaters here was not the intended cut.
What? Yeah.
It's like 15 minutes longer.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to spend $300 on this DVD player. Back with DVD player for $300.
Yeah, I got kind of hardcore. Actually, the next movie on my list will show my kind of show my dedication to collecting movies, I guess. But yeah, I remember when that came out, and it's like it's a 3-disc box. And it was like $60 or something at the time, and I'm like, I gotta have it, man. I gotta see the final cut.
and the documentary about it.
Which is fascinating. I think I've watched that more than Brazil.
It's right now on the Criterion channel, and it's something it's just such a good movie. All right, what is the next one on your list?
Okay, so the next movie is Koyaanisqatsi by Godfrey Reggio, music by Philip Glass, and it's there because that was the first movie that kind of pushed me into collecting movies in a way, because I found out about it when I was in high school, and I don't remember if it was my band director or the assistant band director that told us about this movie with the Philip Glass music, and it's like there's no dialogue and it's really trippy, and I think you guys will really like it. And this is 1990, so videotape, nobody has it. Like I went to my dinky ass little video store and they looked at me like I had antlers, and I had to track it down. Like I had to find that movie, and I called God knows how many video stores trying to find it. And when I finally found it and rented it, it was like this event to watch it, like it was this big thing. And you couldn't just go out and buy it. Like it had been out of print for a while. And when eBay happened, I went looking on eBay and it was like $90 for a VHS cassette of Koyaanisqatsi. So it was this really hard to get movie. And like, it's like anything like that. It's sort of tantalizing because you want the thing that nobody else has, right? And I happen to really like the movie too. It was really like, it's so beautifully shot, and the music's amazing, and it's just so tied together nicely. And it's such a weird movie experience, for people. So eventually, when DVDs started happening, of course, I'm like, when are they going to put out a Koyaanisqatsi DVD? Which is, by the way, now you can get it through Criterion, but at the time, nobody had it because the rights were tied up forever. And IRE, the production company that made Koyaanisqatsi, the Institute for Regional Education, did a PBS-style fund drive to get the rights back from, I think, Creative Arts, or Pacific Arts, I'm sorry, from Pacific Arts, so that they could release a DVD of it. And it was one of those things like, you could get a free DVD of Koyaanisqatsi for a $160 donation.
Oh God.
to IRE. And I was like, oh shit, man. Like, but I don't know if this movie's gonna come out ever. And it was one of those like, pay, like you just, kind of do it. And a couple weeks later, I got it, got in the mail, signed by Godfrey Reggio, which was kind of cool. And and it's a great pressing of it. But then like a month later, MGM put it for like $10. But the good news is that there's a giant brouhaha amongst film snobs, because if you buy the MGM version of it, it's 16 by 9 with black bars at the top. And if you got the IRE copy, it's 4 by 3. And a lot of people went, hey, what the hell? I just spent $160 to donate to the IRE for this movie that you pan and scanned. Everybody was just assuming that it was like a pan and scan version of the movie because it was 4 by 3. And the producers came out and said, no, this is the real version of it. This is what you saw in theaters was 4 by 3. Like the 16 by 9, they added bars to the image to make it look like a more, I don't know, like collectible film. But in reality, you're losing, that much of the image. And they showed like shots side by side, showing that you're missing like, however much of the screen that was covered by the black bars. So the IRE version is really like the real version of it. And I think the Criterion is also 4 by 3, since they work with them and want to give the most correct presentation of the film.
So the Criterion version is the correct version.
I believe it's 4 by 3, like the IRE version. And still the IRE DVD is like the sound mix is incredible. Like they really did a good job releasing it. It wasn't just like, hey, let's take this old crappy transfer of Quintescati and throw it on a disc and give it to people.
I can't believe you spent $160.
$160, and that's not the last time that I spent crazy money on a DVD, because I bought the Blu-ray of The Third Man
from Criterion.
Yeah, which is out of print.
I was lucky enough to buy it right when it came out.
Oh man, that's really valuable. Hang on to that.
It's weird. Like the first 3 Criterion releases were Chungking Express, The Third Man, and The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Yes.
All 3 of those are out of print.
Yeah, no, they're all crazy money now.
But the Chungking will be coming back in print because they have the rights now to all of Wong Kar-wai's movies and are releasing a box set.
Sweet. That's awesome, because I didn't want to spend that kind of money.
But no, I have never seen the movie that you're talking about. It's been on my list. I'm a huge fan of Philip Glass, and I don't know why I've never seen it.
Yeah, and the trilogy is really good too. I mean, like I have all 3 movies from the trilogy, Paukatsi and Nakwakatsi, and like the middle movie. I've only watched it maybe a couple times, and I'm not as clear on what the storyline, or not storyline, but what the message of the movie is. Whereas like Quintescati is very much a sense of like, hey, here's the natural world, here's the world that we've created, and we're fucking everything up. So knock that off. And then Nakwakatsi is like all about technology out of control, like not so much just overpopulation or making everything concrete, but like here's how technology is going crazy right now, and it's really interesting too.
Well, I'm gonna have to. Now it's all available. The trilogy is all available from Criterion, right?
Yeah. They sell. I think they only sell it as the box of 3.
What is the rarest movie in your collection?
Probably the Quintescati IRE. I honestly don't know how many people have it. And I've tried to look it up online to find out like how many they made, and IRE didn't say. They didn't talk about how many they made. And I can't imagine there's a ton of them. I mean, how many idiots are going to spend $160 on a movie, right? Twice.
There's a company called Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah.
They released a lot of trash exploitation films. Mm-hmm. And about 5 or 6 years ago, they were about to launch their a streaming service called Exploitation TV. Uh-huh. And they were asking for people to donate money to do it. If you did, you got wonderful prizes. And one was a Blu-ray that was only limited to like 500 people. Mm-hmm. I thought it was this movie that was never really released, and they used to advertise it all the time on WWF's Monday Night Raw or Superstars. I can't remember the movie, and someone kind of said, "That's the movie that's coming out. They got the rights to it." I'm like, I am plopping down my money for it. Turned out to be a movie called The Executioner Part 2. There was never a Part 1. It's a really bad, like, revenge film, well, vigilante film, and it's a great film. 500, I think they're pressing of 500 of them.
Sure.
And that is the rarest movie in my collection.
So it's pretty good. I've not really, like, I haven't gotten into heavy duty collecting the way I did. Like, when I first started buying DVDs, I was buying them like an idiot. And then, like, I kind of slowed down a lot. I think the other rarest movie I have is I bought Solo before it was re-released. And it was just, at the time, like, I wasn't even really interested in the movie as much as oh my God, nobody has this movie. And, like, I could have it. And, like, I'd be a cool film collector guy because I would have this movie. And I ended up buying, like, a good bootleg, but a bootleg all the same. I should have known, because it was like a legit Criterion edition was like $700 at the time. And I think I got mine for like 80. And I should have, like, went, but it wasn't open. It wasn't sealed. And I'm like, well, it's not sealed, and I don't know. And it turned out that even that version of it was fairly collectible anyway. So yeah, but it's I've watched it once.
I couldn't even make it through. I was just so excited because I heard so much about this film. The director was murdered. I'm like, This movie's going to be fantastic.
Yep.
It doesn't take, it takes a lot to disturb me. Solo, Martyrs, and a Serbian film are the three ones that are like, all right.
Okay, that's too much. Sorry. I'm out.
And I saw Serbian film at a 24-hour film festival. I think it was in Columbus or somewhere outside of Columbus.
Yeah.
And I drove from Pittsburgh to be there. And I had no idea what movies were shown. And one of them was a Serbian film. And everybody in the audience was disgusted about one guy, except for one guy who was just laughing and clapping.
Oh my God.
All I could think of, this guy's going to kill people. This guy is physically going to kill people. He's like, man, this movie is my fantasy come to life.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. That used to be on Netflix too, man. I remember seeing it come up, like, on
Serbian film.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a few years, but
it was an edited version of it.
So it wasn't like an uncut.
Yeah, there was, in the first Blu-ray that came out, they removed one scene.
Gotcha.
And weirdly enough, the scene wasn't the most disturbing scene in the film. It was the sick producer talking about things that they would do with infants.
Oh. Ugh.
And I'm like, yeah, that did not need to be in the movie.
Tapping out.
Yeah, a Serbian film is just one of those films I hate even mentioning it. It's just so fucking disgusting.
Yeah, Solo aside, buying that, that's just not really I'm not that into that taste wise, I don't necessarily like pushing the envelope, like, what's the craziest movie you could possibly make, necessarily so much. So, yeah.
I mean, here's the thing that's with Solo and a Serbian film, the director actually was trying to say something with those movies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a point where if they're so disturbing, people aren't going to listen to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. What is the final film on your list?
So the final movie on my list is A Hard Day's Night, and that's the movie I bought the most, because I bought it on VHS, I bought it on DVD, and then I bought it on Blu-ray when it came out on Criterion. And yeah, I just being somebody who's done music for basically my whole life, obviously there's a big connection there. But it's just such a good movie, and it's like it's one of those movies that I can watch over and over and over and over, and it never really gets old for me. Like it's still crisp and it's still funny and it's still like there's still new things even that I catch every time I watch it.
Was it Paul's uncle or grandfather that was hanging out with the band?
Grandfather, yeah.
Best character in the film.
Oh, amazing, right? I mean, like, and the more I've learned about it, I think the thing I like about it is like there's so many jokes that you couldn't possibly get unless you knew things that were going on in the 60s in England. Like, I guess he was on this television show, and it was like the catchphrase of the television show was, "Why, you dirty old man," was, like his wife would just say that in every episode and people would laugh, right? So when they put him in the movie and they cast him in the movie, they added, "He's such a clean old man," as sort of like a reference to that.
That makes sense. I own the Criterion version, but never watched any of the documentaries.
Yeah. There's a great one with Phil Collins where he kind of yammers about A Hard Day's Night, which is pretty interesting. So
Yeah, I think it's a phenomenal film. I prefer Help to A Hard Day's Night.
Oh, I love Help too. It's a really good movie.
Only because that had a really stupid stupid plot with the Ring of Ringo.
Yeah.
And my favorite number 2 from The Prisoner, Leo McKern,
Mm-hmm.
was the villain of it. But as a kid, I think the first time I saw Hard Day's Night was on the 4:00 movie here in Detroit, back when that thing existed. And I thought it was a documentary. I thought that was how it was to be a rock star.
It's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, same thing. I mean, I think I saw it around the same time that I saw Blue Velvet, actually. Like I can remember being like 13, and I even remember a day where I wore a suit because I wanted to be like the Beatles so bad. Like I just dressed up in a suit and kind of tried to like push my hair down so it looked like one of the Beatles' hair, and yeah, I just wanted that so bad because I'm like, oh, these guys are great and they're funny and they're hilarious.
I wanted girls to chase me like they did
that too.
I'm like, I am so glad I'm not a good runner. Don't catch me.
Oh no, please don't.
You want to do what with me? Okay.
All right.
I'm okay with it.
But yeah, it just never I've been amazed that no matter how many times I've seen it, I just the jokes are still funny. There's jokes I didn't catch the first 100 billion times I've seen it that I'm like, oh, I never noticed that before,
Why do you think the Beatles never had a bigger film career?
I think they got bored with it. They seem to get really bored with things really fast, and they made A Hard Day's Night, and they made a Help, and they're like, all right, I guess we've done that. Well, moving on.
Then they made such atrocities, the Magical Mystery Tour.
Yep, and Yellow Submarine, although they didn't really make that, but
Well, I just consider Yellow Submarine kind of the continuation of the brilliant Beatles cartoon, which deserves to be released on DVD and Blu-ray.
I would love that because somebody used to show that when I was around the same 14, 15. I remember it was on TV and just loving it because they had that like 60s, like the Tom and Jerry cartoons, like that sort of new mid-century modern sort of look to it. And I really dug it. I really loved it.
But what I loved best about the Beatles cartoon is they had the sing-along where they would have the dot going over the words, and that's how I learned the lyrics to every Beatles song. So did you first see Hard Day's Night at a video store? Did you rent it?
I think so. Yeah, I think my dinky music, my dinky video store had it. They had a wall of music videos, and they had Pink Floyd The Wall and Rocky Horror Picture Show, and oddly enough, from somebody who saw Blue Velvet, I was kind of I might get in trouble if I get that, or if I get that, or if I get that. So this one seems innocuous. It's the Beatles. I like the Beatles. Well, let's get that one. And just loved it.
Do you think? I think there's 1 or 2 video stores left here in the Detroit area.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we discovered more films just walking down the aisles trying to figure out what to rent?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
On Netflix, just scrolling.
Yeah, it's that whole choice thing where like, you know, I one of the things I feel really lucky is that you had to actively go find movies, you know, when I was growing up. And now like, I mean, I was just looking today on YouTube that I could watch pretty much all of MST3K, you know, on YouTube, basically. Like it's all just right there. And you end up with this like paralysis of choice because there's just too many options and you're like, oh, I don't know. I guess I'll watch The Office again or whatever. You know, I think that's what a lot of people do.
And that's a problem. I think there was something about the art of the box cover that would
Mhm.
grab you. I mean, you would always go like to the video store to get the big new release, and of course it was out.
Yeah.
You're like, I might as well get something on here. And for me, that's how I discovered a lot of the horror films that
Yeah, yeah, totally.
because it was weird. The horror movies were right by the beaded door to the
Right.
to the adult room. And you're like, one day I'm going to be 18.
Go
One
there.
day.
They
But
didn't they didn't have a beaded room. They had like I remember they had a like a book on the counter with all their adult films in it. And it looked like all the titles of all the movies, which like got me interested in like the whole the art of the porn title. You know, like oh, Gonad the Bulbarian. Oh, you know.
I will say this. There used to be a show on Showtime, probably in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, with Dave Attell called Dave's Old Porn.
Oh, I didn't see. I'm not aware of that.
It was weird with him and guests, and sometimes the porn actors they were kind of mystery science theater like scenes from it.
Oh, that's amazing. I love it.
And Vinegar Syndrome releases a lot of like old porn from the 70s, early 80s. If it came on a videotape, never, but if it was shot on film, they'll try to restore it. It's weird, like, you know, when I reviewed porn, it was all sex. And in those films, sex was in there, but it was just really minor.
Yeah.
And they actually had a story. Some
It's
of the
like Boogie
stories
Nights,
are,
you
yeah,
know.
like some of the stories are actually pretty good.
It's like they said in Boogie Nights, so the art is gone now, you know, like it's all
Well, and I feel that way with some film too. It's like, you know, we've just been geared to this blockbuster culture where, all
yeah.
right, this movie has to be ready by November 2021,
Yeah.
and great, there's nothing to this movie. It basically writes itself, and I love the superhero genre for the most part,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I like films that, you know, challenge me. And I think the last one that did that in a big way was Drive,
Oh yeah, yeah, with
Ryan
sure.
Gosling.
What would you say? I'm
With
sorry.
Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And most films, it's the smaller ones that, you know, mean the most. And right now, when we live in this culture of streaming, and God knows if movie theaters are actually ever going to reopen,
Right.
I think we've come to an end of what cinema is. I mean, they
Yeah.
just released Mulan last week for $30 on Disney Plus.
Right.
Um, I'm sure worldwide Disney has already made their money back, but if 30,000 people order it, which is just a fraction of the subscribers to Disney Plus, they've made their money back. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a lot of this like one of the things I learned that sort of like it explained a lot, but also kind of broke my heart a little bit. That like when they do all these live action remakes of movies, it's more about retaining the copyright to the story than it is about like the movie itself is a loss leader. So you know, take a movie like The Lion King, right? And I don't know if it's so much like out of copyright, but like licensing or something like that. So if you make a movie of The Lion King and it costs $100 million to make, but they're still making revenue from the original movie that they would lose in some way, shape, or form. You know, that like that it makes sense, even if the movie is a bomb, to make the movie because it keeps them in that sort of like
I think that's
ownership.
only true for films they license. Like when Fox, well, that's why
Hmm.
Sony had to do Spider-Man movies after the Tobey Maguire films that they just went right pretty quickly to the Andrew Garfield ones.
Hmm.
because if they didn't make the Andrew Garfield ones, the rights would have reverted back to Marvel.
Gotcha.
But I mean, Disney developed The Lion King.
That's
So
yeah,
they,
that's true. There might be some different movies, but I read that somewhere that that's really why they were making all these like live action remakes was really it was like an ownership sort
well,
of
it's because they know they'll get an audience and they don't really have to develop a script.
thing. It's pretty true. I mean, like if the Emoji Movie can come out, it's like it's clear that there's a large portion of the public that doesn't really care what they're watching. Let's just go to
No.
the movie theater, shut up, watch the movie.
Well, it's like AT&T. There's been rumors that AT&T wants to shut down DC Comics or sell it to Marvel.
Hmm.
AT&T now owns Warner Brothers, and DC Comics falls under that umbrella, and like that's the stupidest thing they could do because DC Comics is where they can develop intellectual property for later films.
Hmm.
They don't. It's like, hey, will this movie work? Let's try as a comic first. If it
Yeah.
sells well, yeah. But so Daryl, before we end this, I'm going to start asking this as a regular question to all the guests. What is your favorite so bad it's good movie? And
Well, that's a hard one
you
because
got to tell me where you first saw it and how it impacted you.
so bad it's good. Wow. I mean, that's kind of a genre that I really like. So I actually actively seek out terrible movies because I enjoy watching really bad movies sometimes.
Okay.
Oh man, that's a tough one because there's a bunch. There's a lot of really bad movies. Probably I'm gonna go with the first Birdemic film, the
Oh
Birdemic
God.
because it's kind of like the Sharknado effect, where like the first Sharknado, I don't think they realized they were making a funny movie. It just
hold
turned
on,
out
real
to be
quick.
funny.
Did you say the first? There's a second Birdemic?
Oh yeah, there's a second Birdemic, yeah.
Okay, I did not know that.
And it's kind of like much like Sharknado, like it's very self-aware that it was a joke, like so it's they go a little too hard at being a joke. When the thing that I love about Birdemic Shock and Terror is there's this earnest attempt to make like this really good movie, and they just fail abjectly at it.
I remember I have the Blu-ray somewhere, and I'm embarrassed by that. And I remember the director going, "I am making a story of the havoc of of what we're doing to the environment."
Yep. Yep.
I'm
Yeah, I
like,
mean it's incredible. That movie is just like it's unbelievable. And my favorite thing about it is how he lists Tippi Hedren as an actor in the film because like on the screen of a TV in the motel room when they go to the motel, they're showing the birds, and that's like okay, well Tippi Hedren's in my movie.
when they get out of the motel and the birds start attacking, the special effects are so fucking bad.
It's like three birds just hanging in the air.
All right, I would say my favorite part is when she's doing the modeling. She's basically at a glamour shot.
It is fantastic. I love that so much. Like just all the weird little things, like the fact that the guy can't say solar panel in the movie. He's like solar panel.
It's so messed up. That movie developed an audience.
It's crazy. They're kind of like The Room. I mean, like I don't think they ever intended. I mean, he says he did it on purpose now, but at the time, I don't think Tommy Wiseau realized that it was such a funny movie. He was really trying to make like a serious film, and everybody was just like, "This is ridiculous!" Like, look at that.
So someone actually went and made a video game of The Room that explained all the inconsistencies. And that Tommy was an alien.
I have another one too, actually, that I have called a talking cat ? Exclamation point ?
I have never heard of that one.
Which is fantastic. It's a terrible movie. It's so fantastic. So it's made by this film company that is basically like it's a company that usually makes porn, but they want to have like a legitimate like family movie enterprise too. So I'm not aware of it, but like the house that they shot it in is apparently like the setting for a ton of porn. and it even looks like kind of grimy and like kind of icky in
Okay.
there a little bit. And then a lot of the actors in the movie are actors from porn movies.
What's this movie called?
A talking cat. Question mark, exclamation point, question mark. But I think my favorite thing about it is that the voice of the cat is Eric Roberts, and he would only do the role basically like I don't know if like they just didn't have any money or whatever. Most likely they didn't have any money, but he does the voice on the telephone, and they record the telephone for the voice of the cat. So it's like you hear like this boxy, like, like he's talking and it's clearly on a telephone, like somebody on speakerphone or something like that, doing the voice of the cat. And he could not give less of a shit during the entire movie because there's no emotion, no up or down. It's just this flat monotone vocal performance through the whole thing.
Holy fuck. Johnny Whitaker from Family Affair and Tom Sawyer was the star.
Yep. Yeah, it's so bad, and it's just incredible. Like just the stuff you see, like the cat, like you can see the red light from the laser to get the cat to go to something. They've like shine a red light at it, and you can see it on screen. It's pretty amazing.
I need to see this movie.
Oh, it's so good.
While this, a Sunday Night Fights does not have a sponsor, I would love for JustWatch.com to sponsor us. I don't know if you're familiar with JustWatch.com.
I am not familiar with Just Watch.
It is an amazing website where you can type in any movie. It'll tell you where it's streaming, if a subscription is required to watch it, or how much you have to pay for it.
That sounds like a fantastic thing.
It is. A talking cat from 2000. It's on Amazon Prime.
Is it a Prime movie where if you have a membership you can just watch it?
It's a Prime movie, and it's or you can rent it for 99 cents or buy it for $2.99.
Which is $3 you will never get back.
It's weird. That movie's from 2013, so it's from like the post-video store era.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have no idea who they thought the audience was going to be, or why, or how they were even going to get it to them. But yeah, it's amazing.
I might watch that tonight, or I might watch Something Wild.
So there you go. Literally Something Wild, Daryl.
Or no, the Jonathan Demme film.
Right. Yeah. That's what I meant. I'm like literally.
Literally Something Wild. And then I might watch a movie that is also Something Wild.
Well, I don't want to show off. I do want to show off. I am a charter member of the Criterion channel.
I forgot to order mine or request it.
Which was pretty fun.
Go
ahead.
I paid for it like 6 months before it was to come out, and I waited so long. I'm like,
come on.
And I'm gonna admit I was disappointed at the beginning that the whole collection wasn't on there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, same. That's what I thought I was getting when I first signed up for it. But I think they do a pretty good job of curating the channel. It's not bad.
I mean, I was a Filmstruck subscriber.
Okay, yeah.
Which I thought Filmstruck was amazing.
It was pretty good. And then I had Hulu when they had the Criterion stuff on there too. And I think they had like pretty much everything.
They did, except for like they really didn't have like the Universal stuff on there.
Right. Yeah.
But so are you still prefer physical media over streaming?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. Simply for the fact that because I kind of like movies that aren't standard. I mean, I like blockbusters and Marvel movies and Star Wars and all that sort of stuff too. But the movies I really, really resonate with and I like the most tend to be ones that don't hang around on streaming services for very long. And it's nice to have it so I know I can watch it as long as I have a player. I can watch that movie. I always think of there's this Fellini movie called The Clowns.
Okay.
And it was on Netflix for like a week and then just disappeared after that. And it's the weirdest movie that I don't have, basically.
Well, you said Fellini.
Yep.
because
So there you go.
yeah. But we're gonna wrap this up, and we will this coming up Sunday on Sunday Night Fights. We'll be discussing mobster films, and
Fantastic.
you will be back with us on October 11th, along with
Indeed.
Sarah Young, Kara Karachi, and Ashley Stoneman, as we discuss musicals.
Musicals, baby. It's gonna be pretty great.
And I'm excited by that because I have a premonition that we are all going to agree that Grease 2 is the best musical ever mentioned,
I think so.
ever made.
I don't want to give it away. You know, we want people to come and watch, but there's a good shot of that happening, I think.
I mean, I'm saying if we can make it happen, maybe, just maybe,
Just
Adrian Zemed will be on the show.
I think you can get a cameo from him for like $5. So, you know.
Really? Oh, crap.
I don't know, actually.
I was looking through Cameo the other day, and Lincoln is on there.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, he was like, my daughter was starstruck that I knew him. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, Lincoln, I know Lincoln, of course. And it's like, like, what's his thing?
Giant awkward guy.
Giant awkward guy. Like, giant awkward guy? And I was like, yeah, like, and she showed me, I think he had it might have been the TikTok channel or maybe a Snapchat, one of the two. And how he had like hundreds of thousands of followers on these channels. I'm like, what the fuck, man?
I know. I was at work one day, and back in the day when we went to work,
Right.
and I'm walking by someone's desk, and they're playing one of his Instagrams.
You're like, oh, I know that guy.
I'm like, blood is boiling.
Yeah, it was great. Like the first show that I produced at that coffee house, he was supposed to be on it, and all my daughter's friends were freaking out, like, "Oh my God, Shine Awkward Guy's gonna be at the show! Oh my God!" You know, and they're like,
"Did he no show?"
Yeah, he like right before the show canceled. I think that's when like he had gone through kind of a patch, you know, and that was right at the beginning of that. So, you know.
Yeah, I was in the Ridley's class with him, and I didn't understand. I don't know. I still don't understand it, but
I don't get it.
But for some reason, and awesome for him that he is resonating with the youth of today. And I should try to get him on here to talk about movies, though. I would be interested to see what movies impacted him, and
yeah, that'd be interesting.
And if How High was one of those movies.
I'm gonna guess like Half Baked, you know.
Jay and Silent Bob, Clerk.
All those things, yeah, probably. I would have to guess.
Well, Daryl, thank you so much. We will see you on October 12th for the musical edition, which is the one I am most looking forward to, besides superheroes, and the one I'm kind of nervous about is queer cinema. That's coming up.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, if anyone says Chasing Amy on there, they will automatically be booted out of the thing.
You're just like, you have left the chat. Goodbye.
And by the way, thank you, because Dan Turco and I were talking at the show last week about that. You know, that I was going to be doing the 5 movies that influence people, and he's like, "Oh, you're just gonna get the same answers: Clerks, Dazed and Confused, Star Wars."
I'm a weird dude, and you're not going to get those from me.
And that's why I had you on first, because you mentioned Rafifi in the heist episode. I'm like, all right, this guy knows his criterions.
I do. Yep, I do.
And well, thank you very much. We will see you guys on next Sunday for mobster films to discuss what the best one is. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to predict Bugsy Malone will not be on anyone's list but mine.
I'm guessing Dick Tracy. Not really.
I think Warren Beatty just made that movie so he could bang Madonna.
100%. And if he could pull that off, you're like, why not go for it, I guess.
Can you just imagine him walking around his house? How can I have sex with Madonna?
How can I bang Madonna?
I could ask her out on a date. You know what? That's what every guy does. I'm the guy who went on to the Heaven Can Wait movie poster and said, "Make my package look bigger." I was in shampoo.
Come on, I'm Warren Beatty.
I made Ishtar. I don't know if that was after Dick Tracy, but no. He's like, I'm going to make a movie. I'm going to put Madonna in it. we're going to be getting along, and she's going to want to have sex with me.
It's going to be great.
And so basically, if that happened, Warren Beatty paid $50 million to have sex with Madonna.
On that note, Ricky about it or whatever.
On that note, Warren Beatty, you made a shitty movie.
I'm blowing a lot of money, but I'm not blowing that like I'm going to spend $160 on a movie, but you know.
I regret buying Dick Tracy. My ticket to it at the theater.
Right. Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
We will see you on October 12th, and we will be here next week with another one-on-one with another comedian talking about 5 movies that influenced them.
All right. Take it easy.